Today you're going to be on a fun ride of multiple things, so if you haven't already been amazed.
Today, we're pulling the curtain back and taking you inside the Woodland Park Zoo.
Tian and Zan are way up in the tree. They're a bit shy, but we'll take you up there.
New exhibits, new animals,
Who do we have there?
and new adventures await right now on Kairos 7.
Hey there, I'm Matthew Smith, and this is the Woodland Park Zoo. I don't know if you can feel that, but that's a fresh season coming your way. We have all sorts of stuff to do, including showing you some animals you haven't seen before and taking you inside the species survival programs. Along the way, we'll even introduce you to some of the babies. This season, we'll take you behind the scenes. You'll live a day in the life of a keeper. That's right, rhinos, giraffes, and jaguars. And you'll learn what it takes to care for these beautiful creatures.
We get so much out of our interactions with the people that work here with us that help to provide this care and help us make these decisions that in the end it's a joy to be able to do it, you know. We're lucky to be able to have these jobs and to be able to care for these magnificent animals.
But more importantly, this season, we're going to have some fun. There are new exhibits, new furry friends, and I plan to show you all of them. Today is all about growing up gorilla. Now, this is actually one of the most exciting and most sought after exhibits here inside the zoo. But today what we want to show you is how they create this family dynamic here inside the Woodland Park Zoo. We're also going to show you how you can help these creatures in the wild. You see Kwame here is watching over us. Let's introduce you to his troop. All right, so you've met Kwame and you've met the rest of the troop, but how do they create family dynamic here inside the Woodland Park Zoo? You've got a lot of play here. You've got a toddler, an infant, heck, you've even got the newborn gorilla, and each of them have a long way to go until they grow in to Dad's footsteps. So, you also have two mothers and a silverback. As you're about to learn, each gorilla plays a special role in the growing up process. Listen closely. Just loud enough to overcome the wind, we can hear Yola chomping on her afternoon snack. And not far away, Kotoko is gaining a little bit of balance, which means Azuma can take a rare moment for herself. Kind of. How each gorilla interacts with one another is key. As Martin Ramirez tells me, the zoo itself plays a role in forming a bond between these gorillas, and they have to get it right.
Those dynamics, those social situations are something that we're creating and forming ourselves. It's not done in a haphazard way at all.
That's because if you get it wrong, conflict comes into play. And one look at Kwame, Well, I don't want to mess with that. You get the feeling that when it comes to an alpha, the leader of this pack or troop, you need one that blends with the troop that already is in place.
Conflict with these guys can be very, very harsh. We have to be very careful about how that happens. In fact, I don't mind sharing a story. Very early on in Kotoko's life, he did sustain an injury from a conflict between Azama, his mother, and one of the other females. Now, sometimes it's as simple as they're jealous of the attention the other female's getting from the male.
It sounds like this is part scientist, part therapist in a way.
It is, especially when you're talking about a social animal like a gorilla who live in large social groups. It is, and it's not something we take lightly. It's a responsibility that we have. Sometimes it works well, we big thumbs up, and sometimes they surprise us and we see behaviors that we didn't expect to see.
Remember, they can replicate a lot inside of a zoo setting, but in the wild, troops are families. In a zoo, you need to form that bond. Much like humans, gorillas can build alliances, provide companionship. They can even learn from one another. Babies like Zuna and Kotoko play a huge role in that. We'll talk about this sweet boy and his young sister later. But first, you need to understand Kwame. As you see him here munching on a snack, you may sense that he's comfortable in his role. But before he was brought in, he was a bachelor. So zookeepers had to play matchmaker to fit him into this troop.
We introduced him to 4 other females who had all been born here. So that's the interesting thing, is that. So he was the one that we brought in. And that decision was not just based on personality, it's also genetics.
Well, there's no Hello Cupid for gorillas, right? So,
Exactly.
so how do you
Right.
how do you go about classifying personalities?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with the expertise of our keepers. Each time they interact with one of these animals, they're not only learning as much as they can about their behavior, they're also creating a bond between the keepers and the gorillas so that they can read their behavior.
And there is a lot riding on reading that behavior. Our cameras were there when Yola was just a baby. Look at her now. She is all grown up. It almost looks like a different gorilla. But when Kwame first came to this troop, Yola was only 3 years old. Anyone that took on the silverback role in this troop was going to have the right demeanor to step in not only as a protector, but they also had to be gentle. This isn't just for Yola, though. We're also seeing Kwame take on this role as father for Kotoko. Yes, everyone loves a baby. Still a toddler, Kotoko is quite the handful, always staying close to Mom. And Mom, Azuma in Kotoko's case, plays an important role as well. Even deciding which gorilla would have Kwame's first baby had to be thought through.
We chose the most dominant female, the one that's I don't want to say matriarch, but she's actually the leader on the female side of this troop. So we chose her first because we needed her to establish that role with all the other gorillas as well. And so being the first one to have a baby, then that allowed us to evaluate her behavior, first of all, but it also changed her status in the troop or reinforced her status in the troop.
Keep in mind, a new gorilla, even a baby, changes the dynamics. Since Kwame has arrived, he's brought 2 new gorillas into the fold, Kotoko and baby Zuna. We'll hear more about baby Zuna later, but it's worth checking in with one of Zuna's keepers, Sean Bell, because he's had an up-close seat to see those shifting dynamics.
He was part of it where we would put Zuna in with Nadi and she would let her sit there between her legs, but as soon as we would let Kwame in to come look at her, Nadi got protective and she'd pick her up and let Kwame look at her, but if Kwame went to touch, she would turn away, so really helped to reinforce that. And the silverback gets a really strong relationship with the female when she has a baby, so it's just nice when Kwame would start grooming her or showing her affection.
Each newborn that we have here influenced the social dynamics of the troop. And so we need to be very careful about and thoughtful about how we do that and what that impact has.
Remember, deliberate and thoughtful. That is the aim here.
It's a lot of work. Our team here is one of the best in the country. I mean, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and there's not a day that I don't feel like it's been a rewarding day.
I don't know about you guys, but that's a lot of action I need to see. And luckily, This one was donated by one of the people that loved those gorillas. Now, we've seen Kwame and we run wild with Yola and Kitoko, but we need to take you out into the wild so you can figure out how you can be part of the help here. That's coming up after the break.
Coming up,
We think it's likely that there are probably about 100,000 western lowland gorillas left in the wild. They have lost about 60% of their population over the last 20 to 25 years.
and helping is easier than you may think.
There are 3 or 4 things that you can do on a daily basis that impact species here in the Pacific Northwest and around the world.
Grab an old cell phone and head to the zoo.
So just such a simple step obviously can make such a big difference. Yeah, what happens after I drop that cell phone in there?
That answer and more when your look inside Woodland Park Zoo returns.
Welcome back. Now, did you know there's actually 4 types of gorilla in the eastern and central part of Africa, and all of them are currently endangered? We've got a list of them here. You've got the western lowland, the cross river, eastern lowland, and the mountain gorilla. Again, all of these gorillas endangered. That's why it's so important to give these creatures a second lease on life. Now, one of the impressive things here at the zoo is they've been supporting research on the western lowland gorillas for more than 2 decades. And get this, you can help. Tembo was born here, deep in the Congo. This lush forest is full of the flowers, leaves, and plants that these western lowland gorillas require for nourishment. In 2013, there were almost 360,000 of these beautiful primates in the wild, but the land and the gorillas are disappearing.
We think it's likely that there are probably about 100,000 western lowland gorillas left in the wild.
Are we talking land loss? Are we talking about quality of the land that's left?
It's an all of the above situation. So there is poaching for bushmeat. There is also a lot of habitat loss where illegal logging is happening. And by doing that illegal logging, you're taking away their habitat and then you're opening it up for mining.
Mining, which oftentimes is done by children. An act that would be deemed criminal in many parts of the world, playing out every day in the Congo. In 2018, this child explained why he does this grueling labor. My parents are dead, this child explains, and I stay with my grandma. He goes on to say that to help his family, he needs to work in these mines. So how do we stop this? This devastating child labor, the destruction of land, and the snuffing out of a critically endangered species before our eyes. In searching for an answer, Miller explains we need to look in the mirror.
And we are all a little responsible for that. In our handheld electronics, there is a mineral called coltan, which gives your phone or its handheld electronic battery life. And that happens to be mined right where the last of the world's gorillas are living.
But we don't have to destroy this land. We don't have to mine here. Coltan is valuable, yes, but it can also be recycled. Phones can be broken down and coltan can be reused thanks to facilities like this one, run by EcoCell. That's why the Woodland Park Zoo has teamed up with them. All you have to do is drop off your old cell phone or handheld electronics into these boxes found inside the zoo. Heck, they put one outside for those who don't even want to come in.
Heck yeah, it's as simple as dropping off a handheld electronic. It allows you to make a difference.
The numbers add up. The Woodland Park Zoo has collected hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of electronics. Not only does this program lessen the need for mining coltan, a chunk of the proceeds go to the Mandika Gorilla Project, the people protecting these gorillas on the ground.
You're helping these guys and their cousins in the wild.
It all may seem a world away, but as Miller explains, these gorillas are an umbrella species. By protecting them, you protect all the wildlife that are dependent on them. That can be traced back to the air we breathe and the water we drink. But the battle to save it all is not easy.
There are days when I open my email and I see 5 different emails about conservationists working in the field that, you know, were ambushed, and it just breaks your heart, and all you can do is sit there and cry.
So what keeps her going? It's the successes, the troops that are still alive, and the babies still being born. That, paired with the reality, simple actions can make a difference. In fact, simple actions may just save the future Tembos of the world. So while catching a glimpse of a sleeping baby Zuna or a rambunctious Kotoko will inspire awes from guests, for Miller, this all hits on a deeper level.
You look at this family and you know the impact that they can have on the world and that they can have on me. And I look at my 19-year-old son and know that this is a world I'm leaving to him. These guys need to be healthy. Their habitat needs to be healthy.
Do you think people see that connection between that 19-year-old gorilla versus your 19-year-old son?
No, I wish they did. I don't think they do, and that's our job. Our job is to really try to help them make that connection. I think that there's hope. I think people are starting to really realize that without these guys and without clean habitat, it's going to impact us. And so we have to take that step to preserve these animals and the places that they live.
So the newest member of the gorilla troop here is Zuna. You could see way off in the distance here. We just had a chance to see her. She's up close with Mom. You can tell she's been attached to Mom's hip as keepers helped mold that relationship between Mama and baby Zuna. Coming up, from bottle feedings to building a bond, we'll explore what infant care looks like.
Really exciting going on our weekends for 2 days coming back because she's just a totally different animal by the time you get back.
And ask a simple question. So when is it time for the zookeepers to take off the training wheels? I'm gonna keep looking for a better view for you, but coming up, we're gonna hear from the keepers. But first, a little trivia to help you learn the difference between monkeys and apes. 3 easy questions. You have to check which one is correct. Do apes have a tail? Who has the better posture? And who has the bigger brain? You'll find out the answer and much more when your look inside the Woodland Park Zoo returns.
Today you're going to be on a fun ride of multiple things, so if you haven't already been amazed.
Today, we're pulling the curtain back and taking you inside the Woodland Park Zoo.
Tian and Zan are way up in the tree. They're a bit shy, but we'll take you up there.
New exhibits, new animals,
Who do we have there?
and new adventures await right now on Cairo 7.
Welcome back inside the Woodland Park Zoo. We are now going to turn our attention to the youngest gorilla. And much like new parents at your house, the zookeepers here have been studying all the baby books. But what does it take to create a connection between mom and daughter? Turns out between Nadiri and Zuna, it's a whole lot of patience. Shh. Zuna is fast asleep. Now around her, the troop mills about grabbing snacks, but in Nadiri's arms, you can imagine the world melts away for baby Zuna. Even as she's whisked up the rocks by Mom and around the enclosure, each time Mom settles, Zuna's eyes remain sealed tight. She's fast asleep, safe. This is a win because early on Nadiri, or as some of the zookeepers often call her, Nadi, was hesitant to take on her role as a mother.
She picked her up a little bit, she cleaned her off. She really was showing some behaviors, but she was a little nervous.
And as Sean Bell explains, that's important. A year earlier, we watched Kotoko in the early stages of life. It seems simple, but baby gorillas do best when raised by gorillas. But when the mom doesn't step up, zookeepers have to step in to feed and raise the baby. But that makes difficulties down the road for reintroductions. So when the Woodland Park zookeepers stepped in, they did something different, new. They hatched a co-parenting plan.
We'd put Zuna in with Nadi and ask her to pick her up, and she would. But at the end of the session, we'd ask her if she wanted to leave her or take her, and she would usually leave her and go to another room, so we'd go in and pick up Zuna. And yeah, on that 10th day, when she finally picked her up and left, you kind of had that, like, man, you just held her for the last time. That's really sad. But yeah, she's where she's supposed to be. Mom clearly really wants her.
The fact that she is being partially raised by her mother, and then we're offering the bottles for that, That's never been done, as far as we know, in any zoo in North America. And so it's groundbreaking in that way.
It sounds like there's just so much intention there to get that right.
None of this would have worked if Nadiri didn't want to cooperate. You know, the fact that she recognized that she plays a role in this infant's life have helped us with the success we've had up to this point.
But that doesn't mean there aren't challenges. Raising Zuna essentially means working with both mom and child.
Nadi always trained holding the baby and Zuna in her left arm, and one day we went down to do a bottle and Zuna's in her right arm. We're like, we haven't trained for that in the right arm, so it's not even, so we'd ask for the baby like we typically would, and she'd give us our left arm even though the baby's in the right.
Don't worry, they worked it out. And it sounds like Zuna is taking charge these days.
There'd be some days where we have a lot of bottles and different nipples to choose from, and there'd be some days where even between bottles on the same day, she's like, nah, I'm not gonna take from that nipple, so you gotta take 4 or 5 nipples down.
Is this a lot like a fussy child? She Zuna gets to pick when and where?
Absolutely, she dictates it. Nadi is great and she'll bring her up, but we just had a bottle before this and Zuna kind of stared at it and started chewing on an orange peel.
They grow up so fast, right? Flashback to a few months ago and just look at baby Zuna. Those big, beautiful eyes, that wrinkly skin, hardly any hair. But Kotoko was this age only a year ago. That is the sort of size jump Zuna is going to go through. And already it's becoming noticeable.
It's really exciting going on our weekends for 2 days coming back because she's just a totally different animal by the time you get back now. You know, just before I left, she wasn't really leaving her feet off the ground, and today, just before we came in, she's on all fours on a vine, climbing up in the holdings inside. So yeah, she's just really, really growing fast.
We are watching Zuna hit critical milestones. She's already grown her first teeth, and she's becoming more independent.
You know, if it's on the ground, it's going in her mouth. If it can get climbed, she'll climb it. And unfortunately, she hasn't figured out climbing down yet. So once she gets high, she'll kind of whine and Nadi will come and grab her and bring her down.
Her next big step, exhibited here by Kotoko. Soon, instead of being carried and cradled by Nadiri 24/7, Zuna will gain more strength, meaning holding on instead of being held as the troop moves from place to place. But blink and you'll miss it. Zuna is little now, but in a matter of years, you may not even recognize her.
You can't take it for granted, but really also appreciating Nadi and all that she's done.
Boy, they sure do grow up fast, and time is really flying when you're having fun. Speaking of time flying, we almost ran out of time for your trivia. Almost. Let's get a quick check. The difference between monkeys and apes are easy to see once you know what to look for. Apes do not have a tail and are generally larger than most other primates. They do have a more upright body posture. And you guessed it, apes do have the bigger brains as well. Well, that was all about growing up gorilla, and I don't know about you, but I'm a little spent after trying to keep up with that bunch. Next time when we come back, it's gonna be all about babies. I'm Matthew Smith. Till next time.
Next time on your look inside Woodland Park Zoo, it's all things zoo babies, penguins, pandas, gorillas, and much more.
And one of the things you'll find out is they've had issues. Population decline for about 4 decades. A variety of reasons, climate change, habitat destructions, but how do you keep these swimmers safe?
We're talking baby proofing and building bonds, climbing trees, and a new species on the grounds.
First time we've had red-ruffed lemur babies in about 16 years, so it's quite an accomplishment.
All that and more next time on Cairo 7.